Hey, sorry I'm twisting and turning here. I'm out in the sun and it's difficult to see whether that little tiny light at the bottom indicates whether the video is started. I had a few comments and questions about the poor patient that we were calling the Elephant Man. And the Elephant Man, not everybody will agree with that, but it brings attention to a really pitiful case. The man had what it turns out to be a cancer. This is what was first thought by the first surgeon that we talked to. So I'll give you an update on exactly what's happened with him. Tatai, he lived high in the mountains, about an hour's drive away from Gindulman, and we had to get up at like 3 in the morning to get up there, but we got up there in time, and we first saw him, and at that time he was willing to go for treatment. Now, I think actually, in fairness to him, he didn't realize just how incredibly stressful that would be, not just for him, for everybody, because he couldn't walk, and so he had to be carried. Now, he really was so incredibly frail and weak that he couldn't actually be lifted body-wise. His own body could not take the weight and pressure on his own body of being lifted by several men. So we put him onto a kind of a wooden bench with a pillow, and we tried to make him as comfortable as possible. And then I think 3 or 4 of his neighbors and possibly his relatives took him that extra, maybe a quarter mile down to where the ambulance was, and we took him in. We got him his first sort of his first examination. Well, what happened was that we made another trip up there. We got him back. We made another trip up to the mountains, and we brought him down. We took him first to Ubai. Remember that he's in Gindulman. Now, if you want to look up the map on this, you get an idea of what the distances were that we were talking about. So, Gindulman, an hour from Gindulman, and the walk down to where we could put him into the little village ambulance, and we did that. Incredibly stressful. When I watched him, it was really heartbreaking to see what he was going through. You have to understand, if you haven't really looked at the photographs of him, he had a growth. It turned out that it was inside. It wasn't something that was growing on top of his skin. So, as graphic as it sounds, that was his face, or what used to be his face, which had been pushed out, taking his eyes with it. Sorry, I'm not doing this for any other reason than to just explain to him how difficult it was. So my own view as a layman was that there was really nothing that they could do. Now, the thing is that when in the Philippines, when you go into hospital, you need to have someone there with you, because unlike what I know of British hospitals, when I was a kid I went in hospital, had tonsils out and stuff like that. The nurses are there to take care of you, and they do. Here, the infrastructure, the budget, it simply isn't there to allow this. So you need somebody there in the room with you to meet your needs. And if the doctor comes around and says you need this medication, he hands the helper the prescription, and the prescription goes to the pharmacy, which is in the hospital. As long as that's open, then they go there, which is a short trip, but if not, they may have to go outside the hospital. They also have to be fed themselves. Obviously they're not there, they're on a diet, so they have to be fed, and usually they bring food in for the patient. Now, so what happened the second time? The second time that we got there, he already was beginning to have doubts that this would be possible for him. And he said, I don't want to go. Well, we then sort of stepped back to see what could be done. And eventually, after some talk, he was persuaded to go through with the trip. So, same thing again, onto the bench, down to the road, into the ambulance, little tiny ambulance, a multi-cab, in other words, like a multi-cab van. And he was taken, first he was taken to Ubay. Now Ubay, regardless of how people disagree, it's important that we are shown to be doing what we're doing. By doing what we do and showing it, we, shall I say, inspire other people to do the same thing where they are, and possibly to help us to help particular cases like Tate. Well, we took him down there. We had a little difficulty getting permission to do any kind of a video, but that was eventually ironed out, and we took him in for his MRI. Now, the problem with the MRI, when he went in to do his MRI, the technician there, who turned out to be extremely helpful, he couldn't get the man to stay still. So eventually they gave up on doing an MRI, and we put our hopes in a CT scan, which we had to go to another hospital for a CT scan. So we had then we had a journey to make separate from the ambulance, and they went ahead and they went to Tagbilaran, to the next hospital in Tagbilaran. And in the meantime, before we could get there in our truck, the doctor had seen the man, and he had said he needs to be admitted in order for us to be able to help him, because they'd got there fairly late, close on 4:30 or 5, something like that. So he was admitted, and his wife was with him. I think his wife really didn't feel that she was capable of handling the hospital scene. It was a public hospital. It's not a vacation, believe me. They're doing what they can with very limited resources. So he was admitted. Now, in between the time that he was admitted to the time that we got there, he had already spoken through his wife, and they had decided to go home. If I might offer my own assessment, assuming, of course, the what if, assuming that the growth was inside and pushing his face out, then there would be nothing that they could do. What could they do? They can't remove it. So it was very difficult. And I think when he saw what life in the hospital would be, I think it was too much for him, and he told his wife, I want to go home. So if it is that this is a terminal thing, if you've seen the videos of how big that growth is, it's a huge thing. Comes right down to the nose like this. It's pushed his eyes out. He's blind. He's 75 years old and he's very, very weak. We didn't realize how weak he was until we got him to the hospital in Tagbilaran, and he had to walk just like a few paces. He couldn't do it. He couldn't walk at all. He was supported, part dragged along into the office of the surgeon. The surgeon in Tagbilaran was the one that said, we don't have the facilities here to do this particular thing. So he recommended that we take him to the public hospital, where surprisingly they have a CT scan. And according to the surgeon that we met, he said they have everything there and he should be admitted. Well, I think it all turned out too much for the man, the patient, and he went home. He went home in comfort. They put the city ambulance, which was a modern vehicle, and they put him into that and they took him home. We haven't actually heard from them since. We gave them money, gave them enough so that they could get medication. At this point, I think that he is on pain relievers. I don't know what else could be done. We lived in hope when we first saw him. We lived in hope that something could be done, and he was in hope that something could be done. But I don't think it was to be. So right now he is in his home, and if it is that this is a terminal thing, which I think it possibly is, then it would be better if he is at home. If I were given that choice, I would prefer to be at home with my loved ones, if I was to meet my maker. So that's the update. We will no doubt hear more from it, because Roslyn is one of our students that we support, and she lives in that same tiny village. So she will be able to walk along there and find out how he's doing. Even in the very short time between the first visit and the second, I could see that it had gotten worse. So if it all started as it did, I should say, in August of last year, this wasn't something that had been going on for years. It was literally just months, and it had grown to that degree in just months. So we can continue to pray, but at the moment it's at a standstill and probably will not go any further. Thank you all for your hopes and prayers. We are most grateful for that. In order to give you a little hope of something better, we have the young girl Justine, who we showed that has a large growth on the left hand side of her face. You're looking at me now as if I'm in a right hand drive truck. I'm not. I'm in a left hand drive truck, and I'm being viewed mirror image, right? So it was on this side, a large growth that was maybe almost, not half a tennis ball, to give you an idea. Now we also took her and got her an MRI, and we got her a CT scan, and we got her in to see the doctor, and it was believed that this would not have to go to Cebu. We've had some people who were evidently very knowledgeable. We appreciate your input. It's wise to remember that whenever we do anything, we are limited by reality, and reality is keyed to budget, and we do what we can with what we have. And this is not a solicitation. We do what we can with what we have. And the situation for Justine, with the growth on her face, who is this just wonderful girl, she's 18 years old. She only looks about 12 or 13. She's very young for her age. But I actually saw her this morning, and I told her then what I'm going to tell you now. We gave all of the requirements to the Tucci Foundation, who have worked with us before in trying to bring help to patients that we just don't have the resources to handle. And Justine's case and all of her details, the CT scan results and the MRI, all of that has now gone to the Tucci Foundation, who will send somebody round. This is what their procedure is. Once all of those details are sent to the Tucci Foundation, they send one of their known and trusted social workers to visit Justine. And when they go there, they will assess all kinds of stuff, like where she lives, what looks like her financial status, you know, and then they will approve it. Well, we feel that they will approve it because she is part of one of the indigenous tribes of the Philippines, and if you are part of a tribe like that, then you will be given special treatment. Now, even though she apparently is living in a nice house, it's not her house, and her father and her came from I think either Mindoro, Mindanao, one of those islands where they were living quite poorly, and they came and they are staying, and she works for her aunt in the small market, a clothing market that's underneath the big Alturas market, and she was working there. That's where I found her, and that's where all of this started, to get her some help. So we're waiting, and we must be patient, and we must hope for the best. Our own motto, Beth and I, we keep our hopes high and our expectations low. But that doesn't stop you from offering a prayer. Bye for now.